So, well, let's see. Are we about ready? I'd say it's about time. So I want to, first of all, I want to just to say how much I appreciate everybody for even participating, and I'm glad that these things are a benefit. And I hope this one tonight is going to be great. When I got to talking about it with Laurel, she goes, "You got to tell me what your plan is so I can post it." And I said, "Well, I don't know. I don't know which one it is, because we spent 3 days last week in the MasterMind Summit going over so much stuff, and I had an idea, and I told her, and she doesn't remember writing it down, and I don't remember what it was. And I'm like, oh, I know it was fantastic. It would have been perfect. But as I was taking her to the airport. She's actually up in Washington State right now. Her father is his 80th birthday, so she gets to spend some time with him. And so on the way, I said, okay, let's figure this out. And dissecting, we did a few things, handling psychic traumas, but dissecting them. It sounds so perfect because that's what we do. We actually look at these things and figure out what they are. So we're going to go ahead and just get sharing here my screens. Get up there. Let's make sure I get the right screen. I think it's this one. Well, no. Yes. Hey, look at that. There I am. Okay. Pretty soon I'm going to have to take some more pictures here. I keep getting older. Even though it's only about a year or so old, maybe 2 years. But maybe a little less hair, whatever. Maybe I just look better. Who knows? Nah, I'm just kidding.
Yes.
So anyway, we have this issue that we all have run into. Anybody that's worked with the body code has experienced. In fact, let me just bring that up real quick here because I've got it here. Here's the body code. And we all have had that experience where you click on energies and it goes to post-traumatic. And you click on that post-traumatic and you see this part up here that says psychic trauma. And for a lot of people, they don't understand what a psychic trauma is. And that's what we're going to kind of go over. You click on this thing here and you got the emotion code. Well, all of these different energies are involved in this process. So when we look at things here, let's go ahead and move forward here one. And what is a psychic trauma? And actually, what is it that it represents? Because, I've been working with the body code now for, probably 10 years. And I've learned a lot of different things about it. And I still am learning just things that just pop up with another person. And as I'm doing a session and I'm going, oh my gosh, I just didn't know that. And yet I've been working with this for so long. So a psychic trauma is a combination of emotions that you experience in a very short period of time. So let's give you an example. Let's say you have a car accident, and that's one of the ones I classically use because you have a car accident. You're not very happy about it. Number one, you could be upset. You could be peeved. You could also be very anxious. This is my car. You could be depressed. You're probably worried about your health or somebody else's health, or maybe you're concerned about what happened in this accident. Well, all of these little balls of emotion we know are individual balls of energy. And if we look at the chart here, let's pull up Dr. Nelson's emotion code chart. Is that close enough? Can you see those emotions? Maybe I zoom in a little bit.
Yes, please.
Let's see if we can go in a little bit more here. There we go. Bring it up here. Can you see them? Is that better?
Yes. Thank you.
So we know that there are 60 different emotions that Dr. Nelson chose. Of course, we know that there's more. And we have another chart, if you're an ultimate healer, that has 102 on here. But 60 different emotions that allow you to understand, he chose 10 from each area of the body that generates an emotion. Now, as I've worked with the different charts and stuff that Dr. Nelson has, I've learned that there's some things that are, you could go straight from this and be able to do whatever needs to be done. But if you really get into this deeply and you start to follow it a little bit further, you'll see that there are some areas that create a need. And that's where a lot of my charts have come from for the ultimate healer. But you'll notice here in row one, for example, let's look at this. It says heart or small intestine. That's the area, and you've got 10 different emotions. It doesn't matter which column they're in, just forget that. But the fact that the abandonment, betrayal, forlorn, lost, love unreceived, effort unreceived, heartache, insecurity, overjoy, and vulnerability are all emotions that are generated from the heart and the small intestine. And what I've learned is that each one of those vibrates at a different frequency. Now that's the important part, because it's just like a musical note. If you have a C or an A or an E, they are all at an exact separate frequency. Now you can combine them and make some nice chords. Some of them aren't that so nice, but that's one of the things about the emotions that we know, is that they each have a frequency. Well, in a psychic trauma, they all happen within a very short period of time. And I've given you an example here. You've got anxiety, you've got fear, you got anger, and all of those, because it's within a very short period of time, create this hybrid ball of energy. They all just go into a big ball of energy, and it's very difficult to figure out what that energy is because you don't know what it's made of, which brings us to our dissecting part. Now, the thing that we're dealing with here is it's usually negative emotions that we're dealing with, which got me to thinking. I'm going, can we have, what would be the opposite of a psychic trauma? You know, what would be, could you do positive emotions? Could that be harmonic? I mean, when you fall in love, does that mean a couple of different emotions that come together and it creates that chord? Just like notes, you can combine notes. And I thought, that's an interesting thought. So we'll table that. Maybe we'll have some discussion later on if anybody's ever worked with that. But anyway, a psychic trauma, though, is something that is a combination. Now, if you follow the system, the body code, you'll find that over and over and over, they say that you're going to have, this could be 2, maybe 3, maybe 4 emotions. And that's pretty much it. Except I haven't run into that. Very seldom do I get those. Well, I mean, it's not so true. I mean, I have to go back. I get a lot of 3s and 4s. But I get a lot more also that pop up. In fact, I had some today that one had 16 different emotions. That's a lot, because you're thinking about what happens, because once again, it's in a very small period of time. It's usually within an hour, or within obviously 0 to about an hour, 45 minutes to an hour. It's about the period of time. And all of these things come in there and they combine in there. I'm going to mute everybody here, just so we've got everybody. No background noises. Okay. So anyway, so can you still hear me? Raise your hand. Perfect. Okay. So anyway, I want you to understand that there can be more emotions that are involved. Now, why did I get more than somebody else? I don't know. Maybe it's because I allow it to happen. But whatever it is, I know that the more emotions that there are, and the more I keep an eye on things. Now, the more that the person's gone through. Let me throw this back up here again. Now, when we do a psychic trauma, and I've got some demonstrations later on we're going to do, it's possible that we can get more than one emotion that is the same on this list. And one of the things you need to remember is that there are 60 emotions here. There's more than 60 emotions. We already just talked about that. And these are just the negative ones. So what happens is, how does that happen? And what happens is that they are different definitions of that emotion. So that kind of explains a little bit. In fact, let me see if I can bring one up here quick. Let's see, let's go here. I'm gonna bring up the chart that we normally use for ultimate healers. The mini charts here, that'll work. Just one moment. And I'll show you the definitions. Hopefully they're in this one. There they are, perfect, they are. So I'm gonna bring this over here. And we're going to go up here to the definitions. And we're just going to pick one for now. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit here so you can see this. Oops, I got to get in the right spot here. There we go. In fact, I need to get There, like that. Now let's see if we can make this come up. Maybe, maybe not. Is it this one? Oh, I was trying to press the wrong button. Okay, let me know. Can you see this abandonment now? Can you read it? Okay, awesome. So abandonment has a number of different definitions for this particular emotion. Physical abandonment is being left alone, 1. Left behind, 2. Deserted, the 3. This is type of abandonment we most see in childhood. Emotional abandonment could be given up on, which would be 4. Withdrew from, 5. Emotionally deserted, 6. Separated from, 7. Feeling better than feeling of being left behind. There's 8, and there's 8 different definitions of that same word. Does that make sense so far? Okay, so that's what we're dealing with, and every one of these has something similar. Now, you could take the one like crying, or you can take defensiveness or depression. It seems sad, gloomy, low spirits, dejected. Well, there's 4 right there. Often a secondary emotion caused by anger turned inward at the self and feelings of shame and guilt. So any of those, and so when I do this and I find these things, I test them if I see duplicates on there. So that kind of gives you a hand or an understanding of that part of it. We're just going to go back here now to our presentation. We return you to your regularly programmed station here. Let's see, let's go to the next one. So there's different from, okay, this is different than from single emotions. One of the things I found lately is that when I come up against, and I want you to understand that there's a difference here. I'm going to bring the body code back here. So if I am, let's go back to the beginning, and I get energies, and I go mental, and I go memory. Okay, so I know that there's a memory that's causing an issue. What I found is that by working with this, I always go, well, I don't know what the memory is. First of all, I ask, do I need to know more? And if it tells me yes, then I go through my standard things in my head. Is it a family thing? Is it work related? Is it money? Is it relationships? Is this school? You know, I go through the different ones, and usually something will pick up, but sometimes it doesn't. I'm going, oh, okay, so what's the deal? Well, what is it that keeps your memories fresh? It's the emotion that's tied to it. So what I end up doing is I'm going, oh, is there an emotion that we need to deal with here? And the answer is usually yes. Now, I actually get thrown now when it says no. I have to go, oh, I got to go back and think of the other ways. But when it's an emotion, then what I do is I say, well, how many emotions are we dealing with? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I had 5 today on one of them. So that was a single emotion or memory. One other real quick thing here, since I got it on memories. When I get to a memory, I always ask, is this a single experience, a single event, or is it multiple? A single event is it happened on this day, and this is what happened, and you know, I remember this one thing that I had. Or is it multiple? This is something that goes throughout your life for quite a few times, that something's happened over and over and over. It's always the same thing. I always sabotage myself, or this happens, and or there's an abusive situation. It's more than one situations for that memory. It's a group of memories. I call them multi-events. So that's why I sit there and I want to find out what the emotions are. Now, when I do it this way, this is not a psychic trauma. These are individual emotions that are out there and they're causing issues. So each one of them vibrating in its own frequency is either still, most of the time they're there, and they could be what we call emotional resonance, which is still active and vibrating. If it's happening over and over and over, then that's a very good possibility. But these are individuals. They are not combined. They're not the hybrid. So let's take us back here. I just wanted you to make sure you understand that these do not create a psychic trauma. You could have a psychic trauma from an experience, but it's going to be handled differently, and the body's going to recognize it separately. Does that make sense so far? I just want you to understand there's 2 different ways of looking at it. In this situation, what we're talking about tonight is the ones that combine. Okay, so next one. Why does this merge? Now, you got me thinking, and I'm always thinking to say, okay, why does this happen? This is what I've come up with. the time frame that you were experiencing this. So you have a memory. Okay, so you've got a memory. It starts here and it ends here. So it's a car accident. We're going to use that one over and over. So we got the car accident. From the moment that you realize I can't stop in time to the after effect, you know, it's usually, it could be seconds, but it's usually a few minutes, up to 45 minutes to an hour. Most of the psychic traumas I run into are within that time frame. And during that time frame, you're going to go through a little cycle depending on what happens. Now, if the guy gets out of the car you just hit and he's nice, then you take things a little bit differently. But if he gets out ready to knock your head off because of all these things and you're feeling guilty already, well, then these emotions are going to come and all of a sudden they're going to go into one big ball of energy. The entire experience, I believe, fuses them together. Anybody else got opinions on that? No? Am I the only opinionated person? Excuse me. Okay, let's move forward then. If this comes to you, let me know. So where does this energy go? Now, we know that with a regular emotion or some kind of energy that comes, they can float along, and I always say they act like barnacles, and they stick to you like on the bottom of a boat. And what they do is they do usually pick the weak spot in your body. But a psychic trauma is now this hybrid, weird, pulsating energy that's there, and it comes and it will do the same thing. It gravitates to a weak spot in your body. So if you have a chronic back pain, it's kind of interesting to find out when we release a psychic trauma, we get ready to say, hey, where's it located? And what I do is I use my little handy dandy chart. Let's see, I got that one here somewhere. That would be in this one. There we go. Okay, so if we go on this is in the Ultimate Healer charts. Let's go down to, where'd they go? I passed them. Oh, here we are. This one right here. Oop, there he is. So I just used this chart and I created this so that I could go and find out where things are. Now I use this for self-sabotage, or not just self-sabotage, for saboteurs, so that I know where you got attacked. But it also works with locating where the body stores that energy. And you remember that picture we just had? It was right here in the small of the back. And what you do is I simply ask, okay, where's this located? Is it on the left side or is it on the right side? If it's on the left side, I'm going to be looking at the front. If it's on the right side, then I'm going to be looking at the back. And I'll simply go, is it F, G, H? Ooh, H. It's hitting hard here. Okay, so where is it? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 4. It's hitting at 4. So that tells me where that ball of energy is. Now, I don't normally need to find out how big it is. Or, you know, I already know when I do a psychic trauma, I find out what time frame you're dealing with. So when it was there. So all you got to do is now look at it and say, this happened 3 years ago. So we know that it was in 2007. 17, I should say. Boy, you know, 3 years ago for me is a little, anyway, doesn't matter. So you got that energy right here, and it told me that it was on this one spot that got stuck here when I tried to pull it over. There it is. So it's right here in this area right here. So that is how you locate it. It could be any size. It could be anywhere on your body. So one of the things I noticed is that you could have it in an auric field. Let's bring this back again, because I have other charts. Let's go up here. We've got this chart right here. Notice it could be on any of these, although I don't usually run into that situation. These are the auric bodies and the chakras. And it could be on a chakra. I've not seen one yet, but my guess is it could be anywhere. The one that usually shows up, though, it could be on a magnetic field. You look down here at the magnetic field, and it could be on the outside here too. Anywhere that this might be, it could stick. Now, it doesn't mean that they always are small or that they're always so big. We've had emotions that needed to be released that were behind the cornea in your eye, and they got in there somehow. Dr. Nelson ran into that, and I was like going, oh my gosh, that's so small. He says, oh yeah. He says, when you get to that point where you need to know this information, you can go on Google and you can bring up the eye charts and find out where these things are lodged. Now, the reason I would even go to look and find out where these are is if I needed to, if somebody's having pain in a certain area. I'm always interested in, is this hurting you here? Have you had problems on that left hip? Does your right knee constantly hurt you? How about this part of your neck? Is it, you know, wherever I might find that, I just find it fascinating to see if this is going to make a difference and if that is what was causing the pain. Okay, so let's go on. Let's move on. How does the psychic trauma affect you? Now, this is kind of fun. It does mess with your body balance. So obviously it creates an imbalance. But I got to thinking about this, and it's almost like a funhouse mirror. It will distort the energy in that particular area. Ever think about that? That is something I never considered before, but yet if it's causing pain, it's already an imbalance. But it's kind of like, you know, when you press on that mirror, with that soft mirror, and it kind of distorts things, well, the energy becomes distorted in that area. So that's kind of what, this is how it affects you. And I thought this picture was pretty funny anyway. Okay, so how do we get rid of a psychic trauma? Well, once again, when we understand that what a psychic trauma is, that it's a combination of different emotions, it makes sense that you're not going to be able to look at that and be able to figure out what the ingredients are. Just like if you were looking at a soup created by a chef. Imagine that. It always comes back to food. So you're looking at this soup, and you've got a combination of things that are in there. You know, I used to be able to look, and of course, other people, they come out and say, can you taste the different ingredients? And I'm going, sometimes. You know, I'm listening, I'm trying to, okay, this has got a little oregano in it. It's got some thyme. It's got, you know, lemons. It's got this. And, you know, I can list it all out, but I'm going to miss something. Probably the secret ingredient. But the thing is that it's a combination. So what we do is we break this thing up. And by breaking it up and actually finding out what it is, you're not going to be able to look at it and know what it is until you take it apart and say, this is comprised of these particular emotions. And once we do, then we can release the whole thing at once. Now, I didn't understand that when I first started doing this, and I thought I had to release each one of them separately. But you can imagine after you get like these weird ones, I think the most I've ever had was it 30? 30 different emotions. That's a lot of emotions. Now, are you going to run into that all the time? No. Not unless you're looking for it. So I think it's time to do a demo. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring on some of the slides that I've done before, and you might recognize these, but this is how I look at a psychic trauma. And we'll dissect this thing. Does it need to be a little bit bigger? Should I zoom in a little bit? Okay, let's see if we can zoom in. See if I can do this now. Okay, get that in the right place. Where is it? Where's my cursor? Okay, where did it go? It shows up over here, then it goes there. That's the problem of having 4 screens. I'm going to hit escape here. There we go. See, maybe that helps me out. It's not doing it. Oh. Let me get rid of, oh, there we go. Let me get rid of that part of the slideshow. And now let's see if we can do it. Ah, there we go. I'm going to zoom in on the psychic trauma parts. I've got 2 different psychic traumas here. This person is, oh, it moved on me. Hang on. Okay, 45, 43, 43. No children. Okay, so we've got psychic trauma here. This happened 32 years ago. So you can see, you can actually follow this with me. I've got an energy. It was post-traumatic. It was a psychic trauma. This happened 32 years ago in 1986 at the age of 11. Now notice over here, I like to write in sometimes, this happened within 28 minutes. Now, do you need all this information to do a psychic trauma? No, but do you see how much it helps to have a little bit more information? So this gives me an idea. Now, I had 7 different emotions. Now, normally over here on the left, I'll write 7, so I know how many's there. But in this situation was blaming, depression, helplessness, bitterness, depression again, taken for granted, and betrayal. Now, here's a classic example. Let's look at that depression. And this is the neat thing about this whole deal. Let's see, that's the one I want. Let's bring this back here. Let's go back to our definitions. We had depression. Here it is right here. And if you can't see it, I'll read it out loud so you can see it. Remember we had, how many was there? 6, 7 different items that it could be. So we had the first depression, and I said, so what is the first depression? Here we go. Yeah, I can do this almost. Hang on. How cool is that? We'll just kind of slide it here. That way we can see them on the same page. Okay, so we got depression. Whoops. There we go. So we got depression here, and let's go with psychic trauma, depression. The first one, is it a state of being sad, gloomy, low in spirits? It's low in spirits. So this is age 11, low in spirits. The second one was that, okay, so is it sad, gloomy, low in spirits, dejected, often a secondary emotion caused by anger turned inward, anger turned inward. At the feelings of guilt. So there's the combination. So you're testing, and now you see the difference between the two. I mean, there's actual big difference between these, right? Now that's if you needed to know. Now sometimes the body says you don't need to know, but I want you, as you're learning this, to know that you can go deeper and you can find these things out. That's the important thing here. So let's go down here. Let's go back up here. Let's go to her other spot. Let's see, what else do we have? We have taken for granted and betrayal. Okay, so let's see, we didn't get any doubles up here, but we have taken for granted, shame, betrayal, depression, taken for granted again. Oh, there we have doubles there. Okay, and then worthless. So taken for granted is actually, let's go down here, see if we can find it. Okay, there we go, right here. It's not that big. It says feels treated with careless indifference, not given thanks, or for something accomplished, similar to being ignored. Okay, so let's ask, what was the first one that we were dealing with? Not given thanks for something accomplished. And then the second one, similar to being ignored, or was it being ignored, was the taken for granted. So you look at that, sometimes it can be taken for granted because they're literally making you do all the work. But that's not the case here. So this is, once again, remember, 26 years old at this time when this happened. It happened within 46 minutes. And so in this situation, not only were they feeling not given thanks for something accomplished, but they also were feeling like they're being ignored. So kind of in the background, not being seen. Now, sometimes I'll put up here what it was about. If it's work-related or home-related, personal, this was something personal. Was this disappointment in self? No. From another person? Yes. Male, female. Family. Mom. Okay, so here it's all about mom. Mom did not recognize this. Does that make sense? You know, happens a lot. You see that. This is the information that you can pull from these, you know, these psychic traumas. Okay, so let's move this one out of the way again. Is this helpful, folks? Okay, I want you to understand what these are. Don't be afraid of them. Let's go back and let's look at this, and let's say, where's another psychic trauma? That's the crazy thing about it. Almost every session that you have with somebody, here's another psychic trauma. In fact, that's my joke, is that, oh, it just couldn't be a whole session without a psychic trauma. Okay, so we've got one here. This particular person, age 54, 5 kids, grandkids, had a psychic trauma 28 months ago. Depending on, okay, so it tells me August 2016. So these are a little bit older. But I've got a creative insecurity, depression, worthless, depression again, and then heartache and taken for granted. Well, should we look at that one more time here? Let's go up here to our depression. Let's bring it up just a little. Well, let's see. Let's go on this one. Let's bring that up a little bit. How's that? Then we can bring this one up. Okay, so now we got depression. So the first time was it a state of being sad, gloomy, low in spirits, dejected, often a secondary emotion caused by anger turned inward, at self, feelings of shame. Feelings of shame. Okay, what's the other depression that you're dealing with here? Gloomy, sad, low in spirits. So feeling of shame and low in spirits are the two that are here. And out of curiosity, once again, everything can be relooked at. The taken for granted. Feels treated with careless indifference, not given thanks for something accomplished, similar to ignored. And that's what this woman is feeling, is ignored. This is a grandma. So, if you trust me, we feel this way as grandparents. Okay, I'm just kidding. Okay, let's see. Is there something else that we can do? Questions so far on this? Anybody? What you got, David?
My question has to do with inherited, because it says sometimes you should. And so it's kind of like, this is an accident that just happened. How can an inherited emotion be involved? So that was my question. Excellent
question. It actually happens. You'll find that you can inherit anything. And that is the crazy thing about this, is that a psychic trauma that happened to a parent or a grandparent or how many generations back can be passed along, and they can kind of get distorted. In my mind right now, I see like a treasure chest that's kind of getting a little moldy, but it's still passing down. It's dusty and it's yucky, but it's still inside. You still got the same emotions that are there, and they're affecting or distorting your reality. And that's what you need to remember, is that it's really a reality distortion. That makes sense? Okay, but you can inherit these crazy things. I think it's so unfair sometimes when we receive all these emotions for that we inherit, and we see them when we release the heart wall. In the heart wall, we understand that we do one emotion at a time, and we find out what's going on with it. We release it. With a psychic trauma, all we have to do is identify it. But you inherit these things. Now, remember, in a heart wall, you are not necessarily, it's not part of your wall at the point that when you're born. The body uses that emotion that came along with the baggage to create your wall. Does that make sense? Remember, it's not necessarily yours. It wasn't in the wall when you didn't inherit the wall. Let's put it that way. Although you can inherit a heart wall. Now that being said, I've seen that too, where that's happened, where it's usually one or two emotions that came down from great-great-grandma, and everybody's had it, and everybody's been affected by it, and now finally you are the savior to release it. I say savior, I'm talking about the client. It's not us. We're just work here. But the client is now the one who is actively there to facilitate the release for the family. Does that answer your question, David? Yes, they definitely can inherit it. Now, you get rid of it the same way. In fact, when I've gone back, it sometimes can be really interesting, and I don't think I have anything in these over here. Let me just look real quick. Something that is inherited multiple generations. Notice every one of them has a psychic trauma. Let's see. Here's another psychic trauma. 7 of them. Let's see. I'm looking for something that's been inherited. Here we go. Here's a miasm that was inherited 23 generations ago. Okay, 23 generations, and in fact, it was a past life causing heartache and weight. Of course, I was using the miasm chart in the Ultimate Healer to find out what caused it and what it's affecting you in. Okay, so that's kind of more information. But sometimes when you get, and let's say this is a psychic trauma that was inherited and went back, well, sometimes you may have to find out what that person experienced. And you'll end up doing, oh, there's something underneath this. Oh, there's something underneath this. And you'll end up finding out that that person was attacked, or that person had some dramatic thing happen in their life, some heartfelt loss where they were cheated on and their heart was broken or whatever, and that got passed on down the line. What I didn't do here, I'm surprised, was I didn't specify was it started on by a father or a mother? You know, what was the gender of the person? Was it a grandma or a grandpa? Went back 23 generations, which we know is a long way back, causing heartache and weight. My guess is it was probably a female, because you know, women have a more tendency to have more of the emotional thing, although it could be a guy, and the weight is also something that usually it's a protection of some kind, so that could be affected that way. Let's see, what else do we have? I think that probably answers that question though, doesn't it? Yes? Okay, good. Is there another question out there? Miss Linda, what do you got?
Tom, how do you determine the number of days of processing at the end of the session?
It's really complicated, and there's this great big algorithm I go through. I simply say, how many days of processing? 1, 2, 3. 3 days.
Oh, so you just ask the subconscious?
The subconscious knows approximately how much time it's going to take. And
Here, I thought it was some magical formula you had come up with.
No, it's this great big algorithm. I go through Google and they go through Facebook. No, they just simply ask, and the body will tell you how long it feels it's going to take to get past that.
Okay, I think I can remember that.
Yeah, just ask the question. You're going to find that a lot of times when you're working with different things, that's all you got to do is ask. And the subconscious will guide you. Any other questions? Miss Amanda, it's good to see you. Big smile. Good. Let's see, is there something else? Questions on something else that you might want to have questions on? We're open, folks. We're about done with what we're going to talk about here.
Hey, Tom, this is Linda Weitz.
Hi.
Hi. Kind of going back to where you were talking about any thoughts about why these, you know, psychic traumatic events, like why the emotions all glom together. What popped into my head was the stickman figure, you know, Bob Proctor's stickman figure, and how the filter is there to protect the subconscious once you get older and you can reject ideas and such. But I wonder if during a traumatic event, that filter sort of just disappears because of the emotion or the stress that you're under. And then all of these emotions that are associated with it are basically unfiltered, have unfiltered access into your subconscious.
What a great thought. For those of you that aren't familiar with the stickman figure, basically the premise is that you got, it's a stickman, number one, that's why it's called the stickman theater. But the top half of the head is open, and that's the child. When a child is born, you know, their brains are completely white. They're absorbing things at a horrendous amount of speed, and they're just sucking it in, sucking it in, and sucking it in. And that's what they're talking about. For the first 2 to 3 years, even to 2 and 2.5, the child is sucking information in. And it's even, it happens. I had this happen today. One was the second trimester. She was peeved at her father because of something that was said or whatever. So she's like, well, but I was still in the womb. I'm going, yep, second trimester. But anyway, you're still picking stuff up and it's going in. And then after a certain period of time, usually 2 to 3, that top will come down, and that's the filter. Now the child has enough information to start forming ideas and thoughts of its own. It's creating filters so that it can start to process things. So that's the stickman theory. So what Linda's talking about is maybe that's opening when we have a traumatic experience, which makes sense because you're caught unaware, you're not planning for it, and then that information comes in and it causes that trauma. I don't know. That sounds like a good theory. Any thoughts, anybody? No, all these scholars out there. I'm just giving you a hard time. So anyway, no, I like that, Linda. That's an interesting concept. This is when you start blending other things in here and you start to, things get filled in, the holes filled in. So are there any other questions or deep, dark secrets you wish to share? You got something exciting for us, Glenda? I can unmute you. Oops.
I think that really. absolutely brilliant about the sick man and
Oh.
about the head coming on, and that's when we form the psychic traumas because it's all white matter in the beginning. And it's
Well,
absolutely brilliant.
It could be. I mean,
Yeah.
we could have a psychic trauma, and trust me, my brain's not white anymore, but it's, that's, I call it the gray matter. But, I've had psychic traumas even in this last year. I mean, I'm sure I had a psychic trauma just trying to move. They're making me pay another 11 days of rent in my apartment because that's what the contract said. So where it's like almost $800. And I'm like, seriously, we're out completely. You guys have control. You can't make an adjustment. Oh no, it's the big people that own the entire complex. They go, no, you paid, you sucker. So, I could have a psychic trauma from that. Who knows? Anyway, what else you got for me, folks? Linda.
Totally off this subject, but it's about the heart wall.
Sure.
As you know, I'm going through my certification for emotion code, and I know you have an amazing heart wall chart.
Oh yeah.
Different things with the heart wall, and I haven't been able to find anything in my program, my certification, other than just like a series of questions, like a flow chart about the heart wall. So, what advice could you give someone like me going through my certification to help me as a
well, just be aware that and I haven't talked to Josh for a while about this topic, but at one time he was saying that they were thinking about getting rid of finding out what the wall was made out of and the depth of it. I personally like them because it helps me have another insight into what the person's subconscious is thinking. Let me just bring that chart up for you real quick here. The one that I use. Let's see. Oh, I got to share for my screen first. You won't see a thing.
Yeah, because where I'm going at with this is I would find it very helpful when I'm doing sessions with people because, as you know, in your certification, you're supposed to document when you've cleared heart walls for some of your clients.
Mm-hmm.
And if I don't have a chart to go by, that's going to take a lot more time. And I don't know that I'm going to be able to, drill down like you can with your chart.
Yeah, just remember, Linda, everything that I put together is just simply a matter of tracking it. I've used almost every one of these different items that they've come up at one time or another. You can definitely, this is not like it's super hidden type thing. It's just usually part of the program. But you can just create a chart and just simply add in all these different things. When I created this, there's some on here that I've never used. But if I felt inclined to put it on there, I put it on there. And so it's just simply a matter of, I tried wood, metal, natural. I don't know what that was, but anyway. So all of these things are here just because they were things that I just don't like to go, and like yourself, I like to have a chart. There was no chart, so I created one of my own because I kept trying to find out, and that was the old days. You found out what it was made out of. And I just thought it took way too much time to try and figure that out. So I just threw this thing together. It's got, I think there was like close to 300. If you look at like tape and duct tape, glue and resin, rope and chains, each one of them I just associated with something that was close. What I'm going to find here sometimes is that when I'll ask, is it on this chart? And it'll say no. And I go, okay, so is there something close? And he goes, yep. And the other question I always ask is it one of the elements? And I'll actually look at an element chart. But you can ask the subconscious, is it important? For me, I find that it's helpful. And maybe for you, you'll find that it's helpful too. But you can create something. This has been on here long enough. You can copy it off the screen. So
yeah, because I'm with you. I think it's, instead of like spending a whole lot of time And, like you said, sometimes you may not have to know the specifics, but sometimes I know you are going to have to, especially if there's several different issues, that you're dealing with. And like you said, you can ask the subconscious, do I need to know more, or can I just clear it now? And I may get lucky enough, that I don't have to, but, who knows when I get in the middle of something. I just think that the charts are such great tools to have as a backup.
Well, I agree. That's why I promote them. But the other part of this, you need to remember that whoever you're working with and whatever you have available is going to be enough for that particular situation. You're going to find something, and the subconscious will go and it will say, okay, none of these things are really it, but this is the closest thing. And the whole goal, and this is what you need to remember too, even with a psychic trauma or with a miasm or with anything that you're releasing, what you have to do is you have to make sure the subconscious signs off and says, we no longer need to have this issue. It's the subconscious. It's not you necessarily that is the magic part of this thing. Now, the more you know, the more the subconscious can use you to help the client understand what's going on. But it's really a matter of getting the subconscious to say, you know what? I no longer need to hang on to this because it's the thing that actually does the release. So just remember that part of it, and it'll don't beat yourself up. And as you go, you're going to find that you're going to create your own charts. Okay. There are a lot of charts that I have seen out there, and I go, wow, that is a cool chart. I'll ask, can I get a copy of that? Sometimes I can, sometimes I can't. Right. So I look at that, and I just find that charts are for me, it solves my logical mind thoughts. It keeps me from going crazy when I'm trying to do work. And I feel a sense of urgency when I do a session for somebody. And I want them to feel like I have some answers for them. And I don't want to have to wait and dig all day.
Right.
Now, one of the things, I've got a client who has some special stuff going on. And it's really weird the way it's happening. And so what I've done, this is like one client I had that was being attacked. And remember, I've mentioned her before, she created them. They were self-created. And it took me a long time to figure that one out. And I have to go into my investigative mode, and which is something I used to do as a computer programmer. I would come in behind these Microsoft guys, behind these other programmers, trying to figure out why the program wasn't working. And they were long gone. They oh, I don't have time to mess with that. So I'd have to come in and look at these lines of code and try to figure out, okay, so where is it that's screwing this whole thing up? And I would look in there and I would find them. And so that investigative part of me looks at this and it says, okay, so what do I need to do in order to make this better? How do I take this out? And so I'm always looking at, if I got somebody who has a problem, it might take me a little while, but I did one the other night. It filled up 5 pages of paper just to try and figure out what the scenario was. And I was finally able to come up with a scenario, and I'm going, oh my gosh, you can't make this stuff up. This is like a crazy story, but it makes sense once you finally put it all together. So your investigative work, and I do mine by communicating with the subconscious of the client, that is going to answer questions. And a lot of times your skill is going to be knowing which questions to ask. And then the subconscious can say yes or no. And sometimes, like the other night, I'm sitting there going, is there anything in my room, anything on that will help me? And it said no. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, it took me 2 or 3 hours to try and figure out what the issue was. And then I put the story together and I'm going, wow, I now have something for future.
But see, to me, that's a perfect example of even you having to take 2-3 hours to try to put it together. Mm-hmm. Where somebody new like me just starting out, I guess I was kind of surprised that if they're expecting me to identify heart wall issues, why Dr. Brad's group didn't create a heart wall chart, just like the emotion chart, if I'm being evaluated to do that with clients. I was just surprised.
Well, what you got to remember is that that is a whole different level. Okay, the body code is a great tool, but it's a beginner level.
Yeah, but I'm just talking about emotion code.
Well, okay, same thing though. They're trying to keep it as simple as they possibly can. It's me, kind of guys like me, that make things a little more difficult. And the whole thing is that it can be as simple as you want or as difficult as you want. I just choose to know more information.
Right.
Now, I brought this chart up here. You can't see it very well. Let me just zoom in on it here real quick. And it's sideways, of course. But this is one that's called the Soul Blueprint. This is a dream that I had. So I'm sleeping at 2 o'clock in the morning, I guess, and I wake up and I'm going, what is this? It says, go write this stuff down. So I go in there and I don't know what it is. And I have to start testing. I was there for 2 to 3 hours before I came up with this stuff here. And I just found out, okay, it was 6 distinct groups, components, conceptually, inextricably linked and classified or classed. I'm going, I don't use that kind of language. But it said that's what I'm supposed to write down. So I did. And then I found out, okay, so there's 6 groups. What are the different groups? And I had to test and test and test till I ended up coming up with this. And I realized that this was no longer earthly. It was pre-existence and post-existence. Now, I put this all together, and I haven't gone back and done a whole lot with it since, but it has helped me with a number of different clients. And when I put this together, it was in a matter of a week or 2 when I had a client who needed exactly this. So you need to be aware that these things are going to happen to you as you work with this, and it will always just get better and better as you understand the craziness that we can experience here. So, questions other than that? Did I blow your mind? Was not the intention.
No, it was great.
Okay, so whoops. Let's go to the last one here. Unraveling that big ball of emotional energy. Yeah, that's what it is. Any other questions for me tonight? I hear crickets.
If nobody has any questions, I was just curious about how your session went, your 3-day.
It went awesome. I recorded it all, and I'm transferring the videotapes to computer so I can do an edit, and we'll put the package together. You'll be able to purchase the 3-day seminar.
Oh, great.
Yes, I think, and I'll fix it up so you got some easier charts and everything. We had a phenomenal facility. It was a great opportunity. The people that were there got firsthand, right hands-on stuff, and we had a lot of fun. We got to try out the local restaurants, and we had a nice group dinner at the local Italian place, which was awesome. And we'll do another one shortly. But we need, it was a great location where we did it. And it was just unfortunate we didn't have more people. So we're going to make up for it by putting it together so people can purchase the program.
That's great. We'll look forward to it.
Yep. It'll be great. Any other questions? Okay, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. And we'll let you go, and we'll talk to you some other time.
Good night, Tom.
Thanks, Tom. Thank you, Tom.
You betcha.